So these people who fled to Hadramaut, many of them actually became great scholars, and that is where you get the Ba'alawi tradition. And that's what Shaykh al-Haddad radiallahu anhu was part of that, and also it has continued up to the present day. They have schools, they have traditions, but within their tradition there is a complete Islamic system. In other words, they have fiqh, they have Arabic texts, they have texts in logic, they have texts in usul, everything, including the science of ihsan. And the same is true, for instance, of Morocco, the same is true for Turkey, the same is true for Pakistan, the same is true for Mauritania. I mean, Mauritania, you can study the entire Islamic tradition from beginning to end, only reading Mauritanian scholars, with the exception, obviously, of the nusus, the Quran, the Hadith. Those are givens. But I'm talking about usul. Sidi Abdullah ibn Hajj Ibrahim wrote the book of usul that's studied in Mauritania, which is his versification of Jam' al-Jawami' of Imam al-Subki. So when you study usul in Mauritania, you study his. When you study hadith, mustalahat al-hadith, you study Tar'at al-Anwar, which is from Sidi Abdullah ibn Hajj Ibrahim. He versified al-Iraqi's famous book, al-Alfiya. When you study grammar, you'll study commentaries of the Mauritanian grammarians on the classical texts. So that's one of the unique aspects of Islam. Wherever it goes, it develops an intellectual tradition that's indigenous to the people, and it actually ends up becoming complete in and of itself. And this has yet to happen in the West, but it has to happen. In other words, we have to develop within our Western Muslims, we have to develop the Islamic tradition. It has to be here. And the text that we use and the language that we speak in has to be indigenous to the people. That's part of Islam, wherever it goes. One of the ulama said that Islam is like water, but the vesicle that contains it has a coloring. So the Islam is pure, but it takes on the color of the vessel. So in Senegal, it has a certain color. In Indonesia, it has a certain color. And that's why when you see it, it's different. In Afghanistan, it's different. So every place it goes, it's the same water that has nourished the people, but it takes on its own coloring. And that's part of the universality, because if we were all meant to become Arabs, then that's a disaster. And it's nothing against Arabs, but it's just not what Allah wanted for human beings, all to become Arabs. I mean, people say, why don't you speak Arabic to your children? I say, because it's not my mother tongue. Their tongue is English. That's where I grew up, and that's the language. For me, Arabic is a religious language. That's why I learned it. I didn't learn it to talk to Arabs, to have conversations, to say, kam al-tamatum, you know, how much are the tomatoes? I mean, you can buy tomatoes here. You don't need to go to Arabia. In fact, they came from here. When we study, we should study for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Islam has to be freed of any cultural apparatus. It has to be freed of that, Islam. It doesn't mean that Islam doesn't adapt to the culture that it's in, but Islam in and of itself has to be seen as being free of that.